and welcome to KnightHunter Books. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different, which is still basically our July wrap-up. Many of you will know that later this month we are going to Worldcon in California, which is the home of the Hugo Awards, so we get to vote, or have already voted, because it closed on 31st of July. We, despite knowing how many categories there were going to be to vote in, left all of our reading until July, giving us a month. So in this video then we'll cover all of the shorts, and then we'll put up another video with the novelettes, the novellas, and the few things that we tried that were longer, but we mainly focused on the shorter things because that seemed more achievable.
Most of these stories are available online. Where we've managed to get out the link, we'll put it down below in the description.
So the first one we're going to talk about is Carnival 9 by Caroline M. Joachim, which was actually my favourite short story. It's really very cute and poignant. It's set in a world that's probably in someone's closet, inhabited by clockwork creatures. There's not really any human involvement except a vague reference to the maker every so often. And what's really special about this story is the way it uses those mechanical bodies as kind of analogues to ability and disability, and in particular explores the idea of maybe raising a child who is less able than yourself and kind of all the difficult decisions you have to make, which was just heart-wrenching.
Yeah. Different people have mainsprings that give them different amounts of activity per day, as do we all, and a lot of it is about how you use that extra energy that you have that other people don't, or don't.
So yeah, really recommend this. This kind of beautiful writing and left such an impression on me. It was the first one I finished and I immediately was like poking you going, John, you've got to read this one next.
Next up was Clearly Lettered in a Mostly Steady Hand by Fran Wilde, which was somewhere in the sort of body horror, sort of creepiness area, and not always the easiest to follow. I mean, I could see what it was doing. There's lots of interesting stuff here about voyeurism and different body types.
Yeah, for me, I found the language very kind of evocative, poetic, but the story itself just kind of didn't really get across to me at all. So it's actually told in second person, which is quite unusual, and you're brought through this kind of museum of horrors, with
dolls
lots of rooms
and surgical instruments,
yeah.
And all that aside, just not my genre particularly.
Yeah. The next one was Fandom for Robots by Veena Jimin Prasad, which was just a really lovely story. I hooked into this within the first page. I worked out what it was about and I realised I was very much there for it, which is kind of there in the title. So this follows a museum piece AI robot who's, still turned on. Mostly what he does is entertain primary school children, but they have access to the internet and they discover anime and fandom and online message boards and make friends, and it's just really cute, really fun. They start to identify with some robot characters that they're seeing online, which is that's the first time they've seen themselves, which is just really lovely. So it's got some depth to it, but it was just a pleasure to read. So I voted it my second.
Next up is The Martian Obelisk by Linda Nagata, which is quite timely. It follows a long-distance architect / builder. She is using a colony robot on Mars to erect a monument to the human race. It is widely considered that the human race is doomed, and this stands a good chance of being a monument that will outlast every building on the planet. And it's a story about hope and what happens when you have none, and who gets to pick what an acceptable level of hope is.
And how you should spend resources when they're so scarce as well.
Not that we have multi-billionaires currently dabbling in space when there's people starving on the ground.
I really like this story. It was a new take on post-apocalyptic that I hadn't really seen before. It's quite a structured post-apocalypse. You know, everything's still chugging along, mostly. You know, if you're one of the lucky ones. The apocalypse isn't just one thing, it's just the steady attrition. It's just lots of things just piling on top of each other.
And then the infrastructure starts to go.
Yeah, it feels very
plausible.
real. Yeah. The next one was Sun, Moon and Dust by Ursula Vernon, which I quite enjoyed, but it ended up towards the bottom of my list just because there were so many that I really enjoyed.
Whereas I think this was my favourite.
Yeah, differing opinions. So this follows a farm boy who is left by his grandmother a legendary weapon that has spirits in it that are going to train him up to become a great warrior. Problem is, he doesn't really want to be a great warrior. He's quite happy being a farm boy, thank you very much. You know, that's a good way to serve the Empire. The Empire isn't actually at war at the moment.
It does, however, have a lot of bellies that need filling with, wholesome food.
Yeah, so this is just like a really fun twist on that kind of farm boy to warrior, which can only really have been done in a short story. This is like the alternate first two chapters of most tropey fantasy stories. There was a lot of humour, which, you know, really lifted it. It was a lot of fun, and the setting was a little bit different as well. It kind of definitely had a South American feel.
Yeah. There are llamas. There's also a goat who's the source of a certain amount of the humour.
The goat is just brilliant, yeah. It's plotting something.
Next up is Welcome to Your Authentic Indian Experience by Rebecca Romanhorse. This is somewhere between a story and, I suspect, an extended metaphor. And it's really interesting and quite affecting. You follow effectively a tour guide who works in virtual reality, giving chumps who are willing to pay an authentic Indian experience, where he decides what their spirit animal is according to, you know, one of his desk toys, and gives them their authentic Indian name, and makes them feel a little bit better about, you know, their life and the fact they've never left the city. And then his life starts going downhill. He befriends one of the customers. He gets to know him, and bad things ensue.
And it does kind of explore
what it is to have your culture misrepresented all the time.
And he becomes an expert on Hollywood portrayals of his culture. Would definitely recommend as something a bit different.
That's all the short stories from the Hugo Voters Pack. If you've read any of them, do let us know what you thought of them. Thank you for watching. We'll see you again soon.